So we've been talking about requirements and features, about splitting work and thinking like a team. But here's a question worth asking. What actually makes a group of people a team? Because I see a lot of groups that are called teams, but don't actually function like one. Just because people are grouped together on an org chart doesn't make them a team. A team is something specific, and the distinction matters. Here's what's cool. Your definition of done actually tells you who needs to be on the team. It's a diagnostic tool you already have. And where you draw team boundaries determines where your dependencies are. Get the team composition wrong, and you've baked dependencies into every single requirement. Let me give you a simple definition. A team is a group that can deliver value without waiting on anyone else. That's a loaded sentence, so let's break it down. Deliver value means completing shippable functionality, not just code, not just designs. Actually done meets the definition of done, ready to go. Without waiting means no external dependencies blocking completion. The team has everyone and everything they need to get a requirement to done. Anyone else means people outside the team boundary. If you're constantly waiting on another group to finish their part, you're not really a team. You're a department in an assembly line. Keep in mind that we don't live in a perfect world, and that this definition isn't, well, perfect. But for now, this definition meets our needs and describes an ideal structure. Let's see how to test whether your group is actually a team. Here's the test. Look at your definition of done. Code written? You need developers. Tests pass? You need testers or developers who write tests. UX reviewed? You need a UX person. Deployed to staging? You need someone with deployment skills. For every single item on your DoD, there needs to be someone on the team who's responsible for making that happen. If not, that's a built-in dependency, a handoff waiting to slow you down. Let's walk through a typical definition of done and see what we find. Code written and reviewed. Developers do that, and they're on the team. Good. Unit tests? Also developers. Good. Manual testing. Is QA on the team or a separate group? UX or user interface approval. If the designer isn't on the team, that's a handoff. Security review? Almost always a separate team. Deployment. Is DevOps embedded or external? Every no or maybe on this list is a built-in dependency, a potential bottleneck for every single requirement. Let me show you what these built-in dependencies actually cost you. If QA is a separate team, every requirement waits in a queue for testing. Not sometimes, every single one. That's not an occasional dependency, it's structural. Your cycle time explodes, and work sits waiting. Little's law kicks in. More waiting means longer delivery times for everything. Every handoff is an opportunity to lose context. The QA person wasn't in the conversations, or perhaps the security reviewer doesn't know the trade-offs you made. Then they might be working with incomplete information, or perhaps they just kind of forget key details. And when things go wrong, blame flows across the boundary. You'll hear weaselly things like QA didn't catch it, or security is blocking us. It might be true, but the thing to notice is that the team boundary becomes a blame boundary. Every dependency is an opportunity for delays, and a very common source of these delays is team structure-based dependencies. There are two basic ways to organize teams, and they have very different dependency profiles. On the left, component teams, organized by specialty. On the right, cross-functional teams, organized by delivery capability. Let's see the difference. Component team. All the back-end developers in one group. All the front-end developers in another. QA in a third. It feels organized, people with similar skills together. But what happens when you need a feature that touches back-end, front-end, and needs testing? No single team can deliver end-to-end. Every feature requires coordination across multiple teams, and you've got dependencies everywhere. Cross-functional team, back-end, front-end, QA, maybe UX, all on the same team. Organized around delivery capability, not specialty. The team has everyone needed to take a requirement from idea to done. No waiting on other groups. They can deliver value independently, and that's what makes them a team, and not just some entry on an org chart. I'll freely admit that cross-functional teams aren't always possible, but they deliver much more smoothly and have less scheduling and delivery risk. You really should try to put some extra effort into trying to make cross-functional teams happen. Here's the diagnostic question I use. Can your team deliver a thin vertical slice of user value end-to-end without waiting on anyone else? Not a database layer, not an API, a thin slice of actual user value, all the way through. If the answer is no, you don't have a team. You have a component in somebody else's assembly line. Here are some warning signs that your group isn't actually functioning as a team. Waiting is normal. We're waiting on QA. We're blocked on the security review. If waiting is the norm, not the exception, your team can't deliver independently. Work leaves the team before it's done. You finish your part and throw it over the wall to the next group. That's an assembly line, not a team. You blame other groups for delays. We'd be done if the platform team would just... When the blame is always external, the boundaries are wrong. Specialists are bottlenecks. Only Sarah can do the database work. Only Mike can do deployments. When one person leaving would break the team, that's a fragility problem. Okay, so what can you actually do if your team composition is wrong? First, map your definition of done to actual people. For each DoD item, who does it? Are they on the team? Make the gaps visible. Second, identify your biggest bottleneck. What external dependency causes the most waiting? That's where to focus. Third, either embed that capability in the team or find a way to eliminate the dependency. Can QA be part of the team? Can developers do their own testing? Can you automate the security checks? Fourth, grow T-shaped skills. People who are deep in one area but can help out in others. Reduces the bottleneck problem. I know what you're thinking. Ben, I can't just reorganize the company. Fair enough. Here's what you can do anyway. Make the dependencies visible. Track how long requirements wait on external teams. Capture and show the data so that you can definitively say something like, our average cycle time is 12 days, and 7 of those days are waiting on QA. Numbers change conversations. Build relationships across the boundaries and get to know the people on the other teams. Make it easy to get their attention when you need it, and vice versa. Also, bonus points for making each other into humans with names, faces, and desires, people you know rather than just some email distribution list that you grumble about. Create working agreements with dependent teams, something like we'll batch our security reviews on Thursdays, or QA prioritizes items that are aging. Notice the problem and then try to reduce the friction. And advocate for structural change with data. If we embedded one QA person, we'd cut cycle time by 40%. Make the business case. You might not be able to change the org chart, but you can change how you work within it. Here's a quick checklist. 5 questions to assess whether your group is actually a team. Can you deliver a vertical slice without waiting? Does every DoD item have an owner? Can you demo value every iteration? Is waiting the exception, or is it standard operating procedure? Do you own work from start to done? If you're answering no to these, you've got structural problems to address. BTW, this checklist is a downloadable asset for the series. Let me address some objections I hear. You don't need full-time specialists on every team. Sometimes shared services work, but make the dependency explicit and manage it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Work within the structure you have, but advocate for change with data. Track the cost of dependencies, make the business case. And in the meantime, build relationships that reduce the friction. Cross-functional doesn't necessarily mean everyone does everything, but it does mean the team collectively has all the skills needed. You might still have specialists who specialize, but recognize that that just might be a bottleneck in your delivery process. All right, let's wrap this up. A team is a group that can deliver value without waiting on anyone else. That's the ideal, and it's definitely achievable. If you're always waiting, perhaps you're not a team. Use the DoD test. Every definition of done item needs at least one person on the team who does it. Gaps in coverage are probably indications of a built-in dependency. Where you draw team boundaries determines where your dependencies are. Get the boundaries wrong, and you've potentially baked delays into every requirement. Cross-functional teams are the goal. Not always achievable, but always worth working toward. The closer you get, the faster you deliver. Next up, we're going to talk about vertical slicing, how to deliver thin slices of value end to end instead of building layer by layer. See you there, and thanks for watching.